Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this is going to be the third part of our compose multi-platform travel app series. In this video we will be implementing the login, so I'm not waste any time. I'll just straight away jump to the code. But before jumping into the code, please do subscribe if you haven't, and you can join my Discord server if you have any question, queries, or any suggestions. We can discuss that over there. We have the different channels where we can discuss different problem and things like that. So if you want, you can join and contribute. So that was it, and now let's just get to the code. So previously what we did is that we implemented the user registration flows, right? But other than that, we haven't done anything in terms of backend. And you can see that we have this endpoint, but it's not like implemented, right? So what we will do is that we'll start working on implementing this. So I'll go over here into this model section, and I'll create a new Java Kotlin class that is going to be the data class, and let's call it a login request. Okay, what does it mean? That we will be basically create a data class that will be a serializable. First thing, serializable. Okay, this means that we will be using it for request, and it should contain something like wall email as a string along with the password as a string. So these are the two things that it will contain. And now this is done. Okay, and the next thing that we will do is that we'll get over here to this user service where we have these couple of functionality. So once I'll get over here, I'll create another functionality that is going to be login user, which means that it will contain a string and a password, something like that. Okay, and in return it is supposed to return user response to the user. Okay, that's done. Now what we will do over here is that we will pass the user email and password to the database, and we'll see if like the things that we are expecting is working, right? So the first thing that I need to do over here is that I need to hash the password. So I'm gonna say hashed password, since we store hash of the password, not the specific string, not the plain password. So I'll use hash password, and I'll pass the password that we have passed from the backend so that it can create a hashed value of that. Okay, now we got the hash value, and what we need to do is that we need to create a sign in function over here as well. So I'll get over here, I'll say suspend function, and let's call it sign in, and it should contain some stuff like it should contain an email and password, and it should return a user. And along with that, you can see that it is a transaction, which is a database transactions flow. And over here what we did is that we said user table dot select, and inside that we check if the the email that we have passed is equals to the user table, like if any row that contains, and along with that the password should also equal. So we did AND operator in between that, and along with that, if that is like both the conditions are satisfied, the system will get us some data, and we will map it into the user object that we have created, and we will return either a value that we have, or if there is no value, it will return a null, right? So now let's just use this function over here inside this. So let me call it wall user is equals to user repository dot sign in, and I'll pass the email and hash password to it, right? So once you do that, you know that basically it's either gonna be a null value or it's going to be an actual user ID, right? So in case of the null, we know that what we are supposed to do, we are just gonna throw this exception with this message, that invalid credential. And if the user is not that, what we will do is that we will pass something like this. Now there is just one more thing that I would like to update before going forward, because that is going to be really crucial, and that is, so over here we have this email. Now what I'll do is that I'll create a little bit of change over here. I'm gonna say ID, that is going to be long, let's say. Now over here what we will do is that we will say with dot with claim, right? and we'll pass something like this. Why I'm passing this is because we will be accessing the user ID from the token later on when we are working on different other implementation, right? So that's why we will be doing that. And let's just do the same thing for the existing one as well. I guess that should be okay, just like some sort of formatting that we did, nothing fancy. And now let's just go to our user routes. Okay, now you see that we don't have anything over here and we are supposed to get some request. So inside this login, what I'll do is that I'll create a request that's going to be call dot receive, and that is going to be something like that, right? And now I'll just update it to be login request so that we know that we are receiving a login request. And now I'll see that user response is equals to user service dot login, and now we'll pass email and request dot password, something like that, right? And then we will be returning something like this that says call respond something. Now that is done, our login stuff is done. And one more change that I would like to do before we like get the code like very we update the code a lot and then we like stuck there. So what I'll do is that I'll get over here, I'll go to configure routing, and inside this you can see that we have these responses that are specifically for error responses, right? And over here you can see that it is just a message. I would like to change it to object, a JSON object, so that we can like properly parse it when we are receiving it from the client side. So what I'm gonna do is that I'll create a map of, right, and do something like this. So what exactly it does is that it will be a bad request and then it will say map error, right? And then cause is going to be message, and it will say that it's either of the message. If the message is not available, it will just add an invalid request so that it just doesn't makes any issues. And then I'll do the same thing for this one as well, and this is going to be a server internal server error, which is 500, and then the rest of the stuff is going to be same, since the message is going to be coming from the for these causes as well, right? And we need to make sure that we pass this illegal argument exception. So now let's say in this case, when we pass the illegal arguments, it will return as an invalid credential, right? Which is like perfectly fine in our case. Now let's just run the code. So I'll get over here and I have this user account that I created. Now what I'm gonna say that I'm gonna pass a successful response to this. When I pass a successful response to this, you can see that it like gives me a token along with the user details. And let's say I just pass a wrong password to this, so it will be a proper response that says error and an invalid credential, which is what we want. Now this is done. So the next thing that we would do is that we will be working like implementing our login screen on the app side. So I'll go to the common main over here, and then inside that we're going to be Travenor, inside this UI, and then you see we have this feature that have register screen and a register view model. So I'll just create another directory and I'll call it a feature slash login. Now you can see that we have this login available over here, and inside that I'm going to create a different like two different classes. The first is going to be a simple file that says login screen, right? Just need to refactor this, rename, and that is going to be screen. And inside that what I'll do is that I'll create a simple composable, and that is going to be function login screen, simple like that, right? That is done. The next thing that we will do is that we will create another class, and that class is supposed to be our login view model, right? And that is most probably a view model, and this is going to be view model we have, right? Okay, now you can see that inside this login view model, like we already know that we have this network service that is already there, so we'll be using the same network service inside this login view model as well, right? And the next thing that we need to do is that we need to again define some states for that, pretty much the way we have already for the register screen. So these are the same state messages that we will have. And along with that, what else do we need is we'll create a UI state like we did for register screen, right? So that is going to be UI state, right? And that is going to be mutable state flow. The first screen is going to be nothing, and then for the rest, what we will do is that we will say UI state dot as state flows. The next function that we are going to do is that it's supposed to be our email that contains a string and password, something like that, right? And now we know that what we will do is that we will create a view model scope dot launch, right? And now over here what we will do is that we will use the network service to login, but right now we don't have anything in the network service that is implemented for login. Right now we just have this, right? And you can see that the register request contain a couple of extra stuff. So let's just create the request object first, right? And right now let's just get over here to my common mean data section, and inside model I'll create a Kotlin data class, right? And that class is going to be login request, right? This is again going to be a serializable. Just don't forget to make it serializable. And now it should contain email, like wall email as a string and wall password as a string as well, right? So these are the two things that we will use. And now we'll get back to our network service class. And now let's just create another suspend function and call it login, and it is going to be our login request. And in return, since the response is same, so we will be just using the same register response object. So this is done. And now it's from the view model, we know that what we need. So we'll just say wall result is equals to network service dot login, and that is going to be email slash, sorry, not email slash password, that is going to be login request, and that should be something like that, right? The login implementation is done over here. Now what we need to do is that we need to define an actual screen. So for that, what I'm going to do is that I'll go just to my register screen, and I'll just copy that stuff that we have. There are like, since we have done a lot of things over here, I'll just paste everything over here for now. Just got a lot of stuff from there, so I'll just get rid of this, and let's just make it like this, right? And for view model, we will be saying view model login view model is equals to Koin view model. Now let's just import whatever we have used. Okay, I guess that's pretty much what we need. We can use the retry button. We'll create a function for that, and then for this we will be using login, and along with, like, we'll not be passing name in this. So this is done. We don't need the confirm password in this specific screen, so I'll just get rid of that. We also don't need the name in this, so I'll just get rid of that. The screen is going to be login, so we'll make this login. The text button should also say login, so we'll just change that to login as well. Since we don't need we are not using these, so let's just get rid of these things. Just one thing that we need to do is that we need to create a retry functionality. And one more thing that I think we can do is that if we can take this state out to the top, this is also important, and I'll show you why, right? And now we know that the confirm name and confirm password doesn't matter if we have these things, so just get rid of these. And yes, everything is done. For retry, let's just create a member function, and now inside that we'll just say change the state to nothing. That's pretty much what we want. Now the thing is that right now the login screen is not being called or used anywhere, so I'll just do one thing. I'll get over here into my app. Other than this registration screen, I'll just go and say login screen. That's it for now. And the reason we don't have this because we have not like right now implemented proper navigations, right? So we need to implement the navigation as well, but before I just want to test it and then we'll go towards the navigation and things like that. So I'll just play the app. Okay, so it did loaded, but then it crashed, so which means that there is something wrong with what we have implemented. So let's just see what exactly did we do. It says that the view model that we have created doesn't have any uh, identification, and they are correct because inside this module we have not defined our view model, right? So just make sure to, whenever you create a view model, you need to define it in your Ktor in Koin dependencies. So over here I'll say that this is a login view model, right? And now let's just try again. Okay, now you can see we have this screen, so I'll just use, right, and the password is password123, right? So let's just try to log in. Just loaded, and then you can see that it succeeded, which means that the flow that we wanted is how it should be done. Now the next part that we would do is that we will store the token and the user somewhere so that we can access it later on, right? And for me, the core thing is the token because that will do most of my things. But yeah, let's just do that. And to do that, what we will do is that we'll use a SDK that is being that will help us in integrating that. And for that, let me just get that SDK, and I'll just get over here to my lib.version.toml, and inside that I'll add that dependency versions over here, and then also bring it over here as version as well. Once you have this data store added, let's just sync that and go to our build.gradle file. And inside that build.gradle file, what I'll do is that I'll add this implementation, and for that I'll say libs data store one, and the other one is implementation libs dot data store dot, yeah. Okay, so these are the dependencies that I have added, and now I'll just sync it. Once you sync that, I'll just create a new directory over here, and let's just call it cache. Okay, and inside cache I'll just create a Kotlin class. Let's create a simple file and call it Travenor data. Okay, and this is done. Now inside this class, what we will do is that the first thing that I'll create is a late init variable, and let's call it data store equals to, right, and that is going to be a data store along with the preferences. We will create this data store with the late init. Okay, it's something like that. Okay, now this late init variable means that we will initialize it later on, and now what I'll do is that I'll create a data store, and let's just call it something like that. Now over here, what I have done, if you look into this function basically do is create data store, and this producer path is a path where basically it will store the file, whichever file that we pass into it, right? And other than that, it's just say that if it's already initialized, this data store is like, since it's a late in it, what we do is that we'll check if it's already initialized, we don't have to create it again. And then other than that, if it like it's not initialized, we'll just create it and pass it. And over here inside that, it's not something like that. What we will do is that we will be using dot producer path dot to. Once you do that, this means that pretty much the data store creation is done. And now the next thing that I'll do is that I'll create a database like Travenor file name. And this is important as well to make sure that you use this extension for that. Like it should be dot preference dot underscore pb. Without that, it can create problems. So make sure to have this way. Now we have all this thing done. Now the thing is that since I mentioned that this producer path is supposed to be coming from the from each side, so for that what you have to do is that you have to define your own mechanism for getting that file. And for that, what I'll do is that I'll get over here into my Android main section, and inside that I'll create a new package and let's just call it cache, right? And over here let's just create a file and call it Travenor datastore.android.k. Okay, and that is going to be the same thing. Okay, that's one thing, nothing fancy, like everything is the way it is. And we'll do the same thing for iOS as well. So we'll just copy that, paste it over here inside the iOS main, and I'll just rename this file to whatever we have. Like in our case it is going to be iOS, so let's just make it iOS. Okay, now these two files are done. And over here what I'll do is that I'll create one function over here that is going to be data store. So basically this is the function that we have, and it is supposed to return a data store of preferences, and let's just import that as well. And now once that is done, what we will do is that we will so do this, and then we will use the create data store function. Now if you remember, the create data store function is basically the function that we created in the common main section, okay, and call it a producer path, okay, which is something like this. And what over here what we will do is that let's call it document directory. Here we will be trying to create our file. So over here what we use is basically using ns file. Okay, so now what we have done is that we use this, and let's just call it a ns url as well. Now what over here that we will do is that we need to make sure that it's not null. So it's just something like that. Call it a documentary directory dot path plus slash. And now over here, what we will do is that we need basically something like what was that path that we created, and that was data store file name, something like that. Okay, so we need to do something like that. And what else do we have? Okay, so it's a again it's an experimental API. So there can be some functionality that are currently with the way they have implemented are in experimental phase, and they can change with the version upgrade. So that is something like that. We are okay with that for now. So that is something what we did, and then over here we have something like that. Okay, now this will be implementation for our iOS, and now we'll do the same thing for Android as well. So I'll just go over here to my this section, and now let's just implement for Android, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll just create a data store, but just make sure for Android we need a context as well. Okay, so that is something that we need. And again we'll just use this the way simple. What we will do is that we'll use the context data directory dot resolve, and then over here we will add the path name for that, right? And then absolute path that we will pass. Now the problem arises that how do we like initialize these, like okay, this is somewhere in the Android side and this is somewhere in the iOS side. So one way is to like go to the over here into the main activity and create the Android data store over here and pass it throughout the session, and then same do the same thing over here from this over here controller. But the problem with this is that every time like you have to like manage it into each screen, each class that you create, and since a lot of classes are being created through dependency injection, it will be quite difficult for us to do it that way. So what we will do is that we will implement the same thing with the dependency, which is why we actually implemented it into the platform specific dependency. Now you can see that inside I am in the Android main, and inside that you can see that I am in at this Android modules that Android level. Over here what I'm going to do is that I'm going to define a singleton pattern, which means that over here what we will do is that we will create a single singleton, and from over here this is just a simple function that we will pass, something like that. Okay, the get is by default available through in Android. The context can be accessible since we define this um, this over here, this Android context section. So that's why it is available over here, and that is something that it will automatically create for us. And now the same thing we will do over here inside this iOS section as well. So let's just create a single, and over here let's just call it data store function. Okay, and since these platform module are used like automatically in the common section over here, you can see when we are initializing, we are passing the platform module as well. So if it's running for Android, it will automatically fetch that and like create the module for us. That will make it easier for us to handle these, right? Now inside this session, inside this cache, let's just do one more thing, and let's just create a new class and call it Ravnor session. Okay, this basically is going to be a simple class. Okay, let's just do it this way. But what I'm expecting is that it should be having a data store, but that data store is going to contain preferences. Okay, so that is done. Okay, and now I know that this Ravnor session data store is created through dependency injection. So I'll just get over here, and then over here inside these modules, inside this shared module that I have, what I'll do is that I'll create another singleton pattern, and then inside the single, what I'll do is that I'll call it Travenor session, and over here we'll define this get, which means that whenever now when I use this, it will automatically uh, search for that data store for me and then assign it to my session object. That way I'll be able to access this session object. Now this inside this session, we need to define some key. So let's say we'll say wall token key, that is going to be string preference key, and then inside that let's just add a token. Okay, and then again let's just do a couple of more things. Let's say user name key is equals to, again it's a string preference key because it is going to be a string value that will be getting it. And then we can create some functionalities. Let's say create a suspend function, save token. Okay, and then this is just a simple of stuff that we will be doing, the data store dot edit inside the preferences, and then for preferences we'll define the token key. See that? Okay, can get that right, we'll assign that. And again another function that we can do over here is that get token. For that, it is just the way we did for this, just some implementation like that. Now what we did is that we have implemented these two functionality for saving the token and getting the token that we will be using, and then we can also use the same for save username, and then again the same thing for get username. So these type of functionalities are there, then you can use it. Now we have these all functionalities done, and make it this way. Okay, I guess that's that. We have pretty much everything there, and now it can be null. So let's just make it first or null, and let's just remove this from there. And I guess over here we made some more mistake over here. We are not storing sets, we are just storing a string, and this is going to be string preference. Okay, and let's just do it. And this string can be nullable. So make sure that whenever you store something into this, it should be nullable. What we will do is that we'll go to our over here inside this UI, and then over here inside that. Okay, so and now what we will do is that we'll see if the user has like this like already logged in. We will not be showing this. So for that, what I'll do is that say wall current screen is equals to remember, something like that. For now, we'll update it later on, but let's just do it this way. But the current screen should be loading, okay, when we load this. And now over here we will do is that wall coroutine scope is equals to remember coroutine scope. Okay, now inside that we will be doing coroutine scope dot launch, and we'll see that if session dot get user token is not equals to null, which means that the user has already seen something, will show the home. Else what we will do is that we'll try to show the user logins. Right now over here we need that, like over here what we'll do is that we'll create if something like that, right? If it's a loading, which means that we are supposed to show some sort of loading screen. Other than that, if it's home login and things like that, we'll show it according to that. Now, the thing is that why I have used this like this, because right now we don't have the navigation to implement it. I just want to make sure that when a user logs in, uh, the next time we don't show something like that to the user. So for now, we are not showing any loading screen. So I'll just create a column, something like that. And over here, this is going to be circular progress indicators that will show the screen. For home screen, let's just create a box. Nothing fancy for now. Let's just say this. For login, we already have login screen. For register, we already have. So as per my understanding, what I'm thinking over here is that once I log in and then I close the app and come back again, I should not see the login screen again. And in despite what I'll do is that I'll see the uh like a home, the empty screen with just home text, right? So let's just do it. But before doing that, we need to update our login view model and register view model as well. So I'll just go back to my UI section, features inside this login view models. And now along with the net, this what I'll do is that I'll say that we can also have a session as well. So this is again going to be coming from using the dependency injection. Now you can see that over here, the current success value doesn't have the stuff. So just what I'll do is that I'll just say save token for this. And the same thing is going to be done for the register view model as well. So I'll just create another private walls session as traveler session. Inside that success, we will just do something like that. It store the session. And now let's just run and see if what I'm saying is actually working as well. So I'll again get over here and then yes, okay, there's just one more thing that I missed. Since I've added one more parameter to the view models, we'll just create some sort of extra parameters over here as well in the dependency. Then we can see that we'll hopefully be able to log in it. Okay, now I'll just get over here, paste what I have copied, it, and that is going to be password 1 3. Now let's just try to log in it. Now success. Okay, now I'm just closing the app, and next time when I open this Travnode app, what I should do is that I'll see this home screen, which is how I wanted it. And just to make sure that everything that we have done is actually working on iOS as well. Okay, now let's just get over here, paste whatever we have, password 1 2 3. Now when I try to log in, you can see that it made the request, but it should not work. And the reason for that is that we are using this URL, which is basically for Android simulator, and for iOS we can directly access it through localhost, right? So let's just do a couple of changes, a couple of more changes into this, and that should be so basically what we want is that we want this base URL to be used only for Android, and the for iOS we need a different URL. So what we can do is that rather than using it this way, what I can do is that maybe I can take this outside over here and make it an expect function, right? And then I'll just take this again out of this and then make it a string as well. Okay, now it will complain, as you know that it will. So for that I'll just use Android and iOS main both over here. And once you do that, it will create two different classes over here for me. For this is iOS, so I'll just make this to be http//localhost, something like that. Okay, this is basically the basic. And for Android, I know that it is going to be a simulator, so I just make it something like, we will definitely will not use this later, but just for now we will just use it this way so that we can uh, completely communicate between two different versions. Now let's just rerun the code again with this hope that this time we'll be able to fix this. We'll be able to log in. Okay, let's just start it again. Okay, so let's just add this, add the password, try to log in, and now you can see it is succeeded. Right now let's just close this and reopen this. Now this time you can see that it's getting me to home, which means that what we expected it from this, so that it will not be storing data and stuff like that. So it is storing everything and we are like very good. So a lot of things just to make these login flows working. So we are pretty much done with that. The next step of this video is going to be the navigation, because right now I just added this stuff just the way I wanted. I just added a couple of things into this, which is for a smaller thing it's fine, but we need to show some sort of navigation, right? So for navigation, what we will do is that we'll add some more dependencies. And the first dependency for navigation is that we get over here to this lib.version, and I'll add this thing, right? So we need this navigation version as well. I'll get over here at the top and add this navigation to this section as well. And now we'll just sync it. And meanwhile it's syncing, I'll go to this build.gradle of our common main. And inside this common main, let's just add the implementation of our navigation. So implementation libs dot compose dot libs dot navigation dot something like that. And once that is done, we can just again, okay, now inside this feature, create another directory. Sorry, not in the feature, inside this UI, let's just create another directory and call it navigation. Okay, and inside that, let's just create a new Kotlin file and call it nav routes. Okay, these are done. So now inside that, what I'll do is that I'll create a shield class, call it nav routes. Okay, and inside that nav routes, I want one thing to be specific, that is going to be the route, like this. Now let's just create a couple of screens. So that is going to be object data object, so something like this. It's going to be login, that is going to be home, that is going to be register. Yes, that's pretty much what we need. Okay, now over here what we will do is that we will say nav routes over here. Sorry, this is the first thing, so I'll just go for nav routes dot loading dot route, which is the loading for first, and then we'll see that if a home, so I'll just make it home dot route. For login, we'll go over here to be nav routes dot login dot route. So that is done. And now over here we'll just say for start destination, what you can do is that run screen dot value. Okay, and once you do that, now this means that you're done. And now we'll just simply create these composables. Basically this composable means that this is a screen which can be navigated through these routes that we have defined, like for login, for register, and things like that. And also we'll just create another composable, and let's just call it a home. And other than that, let's just create another composable for loading as well. Enough. Now we don't need these things that we have created, like if and else if and things like that. So get rid of that. Okay, now now everything is there, navigation is being done and things like that. We can also do just a couple more things in this inside this whole structure. Let's just say I'll create a text button, and let's call this on click, something like that. So what it will do is that when user click, it will take the user to sign up screen. So let's just say don't have an account, register, right? And it should take the user to the navigation. So for that, what we will do is that along with this view model, will also require a nav controller parameter. And now inside that with parameter, we'll just create nav controller dot navigate. In where we want to navigate, we want to navigate user to the register screen. So for that, I'll go for nav routes dot register dot route. This way it will be just taken to the register screen. Okay. And in term of like over here, when the user is like succeed, what we will do is that we'll say launched effect unit. Why I use launch effect? Because that there, if there are multiple recomposition, this success can be called multiple time, and then you will see a lot of like home screen in the stack. So we just need to make sure that this launch effect makes sure that this specific section is called only once, even if like there are multiple recomposition of this. So that way it will be done like this. We also want to pop up the login stuff as well. So basically we want the login screen away out from this. That is one thing that we do. And yes, that is for login screen. We'll go back, we'll go to the app section where it will complain. So we just need to pass the app controller from there. We do the same thing for register screen as well over here, and the register screen should also take the nav controller. Okay, this is again, and for register we'll also add a text button in the bottom, something like this, that should say this, and then it will take us to the login route. Sorry, it should not take us this way, because we already know that this screen can only be opened from one specific section. So for that case, we'll just go for pop backstack. And in case of success, over here, when we basically show this text, we're not going to show text. We'll again going to go for launch effect unit. Then inside that, we'll just go to the home screen. Okay, and then again, if there is anything, we just need everything to be included from like excluded from the stack, so that when user click back, they just don't see again the login screen and things like that. Okay, so a lot of things that we have done. I know that it can be a little bit overwhelming, but I hope you guys are getting along, and you can just repeat the video if like there is any confusion that I have done. Okay, so there is something wrong. Uh, let's see what exactly is wrong. So just go back to home screen. Now let's see what is wrong over here. Okay, so there is one more problem with this approach, is that when we use it this way, it doesn't allow us to, because it already have created this nav host, and now even if we change this, it doesn't matter. So what we will do is that we will do slightly like slight change over here. I'll just make this string to be a nullable. And now as a default, I'll pass a null. Okay. Why I have done that? Because now what I'll do is that if, let's say, current screen, the current screen dot let, okay, means that there is like this, no, nothing available over here, will not show anything until unless we have that updated value. So now I'll just pass this 80 into this, and hopefully current screen dot value should be okay. Also, there is just one more thing that we missed over here, that we need to define specific routes, because without that, if you are don't if you're using the same thing, since I copy pasted, I just missed this. Now once we run it, hopefully this will fix our issue, and we'll be able to navigate. Now you can see this. Okay, now let's just click on register, and to see if I can get to the register, and then when I go back, I can go over here as well. So pretty much what we want. And now again, use the, and now let's just try to log in. Now let's just go for login, and you can see that it takes me to home screen, which is what we wanted. So also let's just try to run the iOS app as well, and see if this navigation that we have created is working on iOS as well. So let's say I'll go over here, I can get back. I guess that's what we wanted. So let me just do one more thing. The illegal input, that is also coming from backend, right? So we'll try again, and now let's just see. Now log in. Now you can see it takes me to this home screen, which is what we did. So that was it for today's video. Today, what we did is that first we implemented the backend for login, then we integrated the login functionality to the app side, and then after that, what we did is that we implemented data store that basically helps cache the information so that we can store some information and use it later on for a better user experience, right? And the third thing that we did is that we implemented navigation that basically help us to navigate from different screens. In the next video, what we will do is that we will first implement the backend APIs for our destination listing and the destination details, and we'll also implement the UI for our destination listing and the destination detail screens. So I hope you like the video. If you have any questions, suggestion, or anything, please feel free to comment down below. And I'll see you in the next video. So till then, happy coding. Bye.